To that end, the lowest graduation rate claim, for example, I just had a few claims that Mr. Walters has made that I wonder if you agree with the veracity of or not, and just would ask you to sort of point by point respond to those claims. I think the first one he made in a press conference in Tulsa here recently was that Tulsa Public Schools has administrative costs over 50% of its revenue. True or false? And if it's false, what's the truth?
Of course, that's not true. One of the things he does is he'll say, I know this is unbelievable, but it is unbelievable because it is not true. Oklahoma has a law that no school district can have administrative costs that are more than 5%. And the administrative costs in Tulsa are 4.03%. So we are below that requirement. And in fact, that law is so clear. It says that any dollar that a school district spends above that 5% has to be paid back to the state of Oklahoma. So we do not have administrative costs that go above that. So instead of being half of our budget, it is actually less than 5% of our budget.
Is there anything you would want to say to clarify about like the claims of instructional versus non-instructional spending? Is there how is he getting from 4.4% to more than 50%?
It appears that he's using instructional and non-instructional costs, which are not the same as administrative costs. And if you're going to use that percentage, then we should be looking at that percentage for every school district in the state, because there are a lot of things that are not in the instructional costs part of that I know that families value. Library media specialists, as I just mentioned, reading specialists or reading interventionists, a social worker, a nurse, a counselor, the bus driver who gets students to school, the people who work in the cafeteria, the people who clean the school. There are many different parts of a school system that make it function, that go outside of the really important work that happens within our classrooms.
Great, thanks. The 65% of Tulsa Public School students are in failing schools. True or false? And if it's false, what's the truth?
That is false. Right now, we have 37% of our students who, right now we have 37% of our schools that have received an F on the school report card. That is 37% more than we want to have. And so, to be clear again, we are the first people to say what we are doing about this work. But that number that he shared is not accurate.
So is it possible that 65% of the district's children attend those 37% of the schools?
I haven't tried to figure out what he's talking about, but I will say too that it's understanding how those formulas work is really important. And it's so, for example, the way that the state has designed that by design, no matter how well you're performing, that 5% of the schools in the state will receive an F, no matter how well they do. And so I think there are aspects to the structure of those systems that not everybody fully appreciates.
Okay. He's claimed that $1 million was embezzled in that case that the district reported to law enforcement authorities. That's a much higher number than authorities have publicly verified in any way. Is that true or false? And if that $1 million is false, what's the truth?
No one knows right now, and that's the answer to that issue. He does not have that information because no one has that information. Right now, that situation, one that I discovered, investigated, and turned over to the authorities, remains under investigation right now. And so no one knows that answer. And that's really important. The other thing is that we're working with the authorities to ensure that those dollars, largely philanthropic dollars, are returned to Tulsa to be put back into the original use for which they were intended. And so that's what we're focused on, is what are we doing about it to make sure no one, no matter what role they have, can do that again, and how are we going to recover those dollars so that they're put back into the system to serve Tulsa students.
Okay. Is there any sort of clarifying explanation or layman's terms explanation that you could give to a parent about why no one knows?
Because it's under investigation. So we have turned over to the authorities some contracts that we believe are questionable. And in one case, that contract resulted in significant work on behalf of the children of Tulsa and all of this is over a number of years, that there was significant work that happened. And so we know that within that contract there was tremendous amount of work that went on. What we don't know is whether any part of that was not, of the total amount. Is there a portion of that is questionable? Is the rest of it, substantiated in the way that we have evidence to show that it was? That is what is under investigation right now.
Okay. Is there anything I didn't ask that you would want to address? I think that's an important opportunity to give everyone. I can't think of all the questions, and I know you're hearing questions and concerns all the time.
One is there has been an accusation that we have had audits that have questioned our financial management for more than 1 year, more than this isolated incident, and that is not true. So I explained that to the state superintendent. Our chief financial officer explained it to the state superintendent, and despite that, he continues to make that claim. When you have an audit, you either receive a modified or an unmodified opinion, and that is the sort of information that you need in order to know how your financial practices are being managed. And then you have findings that tell you areas that you need to address. The only one that we have had that reflects on our management of finances is the issue that we have been extremely transparent, as transparent as we can be with Tulsa about, and that is the issue that's related to our former employee.
So that showed up on one audit report. Could he be making a leap, because you just said that this contract or vendor relationship existed over a number of years? Is he making a leap to say there's a question that exists about a contract that you had for multiple years?
No. When I met with him, I asked him directly, why are you using plural when you say audits? Because there's one audit that shows this issue, and he looked at his notes and he said, well, from this year and this year you had these findings. And what we explained, what our chief financial officer and I explained to him, is that if you have a finding that has to do with auditing principles, like how did you code a cost, and then if you're going from one kind of accounting, like accrual-based accounting, to another kind of accounting, you got to make sure that you're doing that. And there's this very formal process that auditors and accountants all over the place completely understand. And that is what the finding was about. So it's a matter of improving, correcting like a technical adjustment, and that's why you do audits. They're about continued improvement. I mean, yes, they're about accountability for sure, but they're also about continued improvement. We want, as entities, whether you're a business or a public entity, you want to have someone, an outside entity, coming in to make sure that you have your records in place in the way they need to be. But there is not a basis to the claims that he's making about this being something that other audits have demonstrated.